So we're going to first taste through 3 2014 Cabernets, and then we're going to taste 1 2013 Cabernet. The 3 2014s are vineyard designate 14s for the new vintage that's about to be released. We just to put it in a capsule so it's clear to everyone. With Cabernet, we're making Cabernets really from in 2 different pockets. One, of course, is our home property here that we refer to as the Davies Estate. We started replanting here in '94 and have gradually fine-tuned our vineyard program and winemaking, and are starting to really have some beautiful success with our estate, Diamond Mountain Cabernet, so here on the J. Davies Estate. In that J. Davies category, if you will, there is at the very high end the Jamie, the J. Davies Jamie, so the limited, special, select, kind of 300 case a lot, and we will be tasting then the 2013 Jamie today, and that one gets an extra year of age before release. There is then the J. Davies Cabernet, so the main actually red wine that we produce, the one in the largest volume, is our principal estate Cabernet from this property. And then at a slightly more modest price underneath that is the JD, and so we really have those 3 tiers, if you will, of Cabernet from the home property. And on the property, if it's not clear to everyone, we do grow a little bit of Malbec, and that's probably the second varietal that we've had the most success with on this property. We've even bottled a Malbec once, but we typically use the Malbec as a blender with our Cabernet. We also grow a little bit of Petit Verdot, Merlot, and Cabernet Franc, and you will see a little bit of Petit Verdot in the cabs as we get to that point, looking at our estate Cabernets. The other category of Cabernet that we produce is from vineyards that we don't own, that are also in Napa, and there are a couple of different sites. The 2 most principal of those we're going to present to you new vintages of this morning.
So the 2014 vintage was the last of our large vintages. This vintage just gave us a little more flushness to the palate as opposed to 13, which is a lot more structure. 12 was our more opulent year. So 14 started similar time to 13. It was the last of the real drought year. Well, no, sorry. It was the death knell for the drought years of 15. We made quite a bit of wine out of 14. So you'll see a number of different Cabernets, and this one here was about 250 cases. Mm-hmm. So 250 cases of this. This comes out of 3 different blocks. We have been sourcing from the same. We would have sourced from a new block in this particular year. Are you familiar where this location, this vineyard might be?
Assume no.
Assume no. Okay. So just before, so you know where Tubbs Lane is? Where Tubbs Lane crosses right into Silverado Trail, just before you get there, there's a road called Old Toll Road, and there's a vineyard that sits there on the northeast corner, and just across the street is one for Montelena. Tom Thornton and Brenda Mixton have been planted the vineyard and have been growing grapes there for, I think, at least 10 years. This wine tends to be this is more redder, comes in its earliest of our Cabernets to come in. It's very hot, and you're very aware of this particular, being up here on this property. He is less cooling because he's on the opposite side of the valley. He gets a lot more heat than we do. So he's got more exposure. The soils are more of a whiter soils. He's got a slight slope that goes to his particular property that starts in the block 3 and goes down to the lower blocks of 1 and 6, 7. And it's an exciting piece of property. Anything to add, Jess?
The nice thing about this wine, right? It's also in Calistoga. It is not on Diamond Mountain. It's on the other side of the valley. So it's a fun compare contrast to our own wines, right? They're kind of on the valley floor, but as Sean said, there's a slight grade at the base of the Palisades. Fair amount more exposure than we see on this property. So you get a little bit of you get a combination of this vibrant fruit, so like red plum, some nice spiced elements, but also the structure and juice that Cabernet can give. You know, a little bit of a riper fruit profile than say the J. Davies, but still has, you know, some elegant acid, some nice staying power to it.
Howell Mountain. Howell Mountain is different than Diamond Mountain. What would be the first thing you would say if you were to say, oh, where's Howell Mountain relative to Diamond Mountain? Nice, Vaca Range. So on the other side of the valley, Vaca Range. We're here, Diamond Mountain, north end of the Mayacamas Range, at least in Napa County. Now, there are a few things that we could consider differently, but one big difference is we get more rain up here than they're going to get on the eastern side of the valley. So it's definitely a little bit drier. Other thing, this vineyard is higher elevation, right? Higher elevation than our vineyards here. Our vineyards here about 500 to 1,000 feet in elevation. This red cap site is
1,200 to, no, it's higher.
It's higher than that. I think it's 18, 19. So you're almost 2,000 feet. There are pockets of, if you go all the way to the top of the ridge here, the Sonoma County line, okay, you might hit 2,000 feet up here, but the Howell Mountain vineyards tend to be higher than what's planted in Diamond Mountain. All right, and there aren't too many vineyards way at the top of Diamond Mountain. So this is a wine. This is actually the second red cap bottling that we have done. We had some pretty good success, some critical acclaim as well for the 13 red caps. So very exciting to be able to present now the 14 red cap. Sean, give us a little sense for this wine, and maybe give us a sense for how it compares with the prior vintage.
So when you taste red cap, and even the difference between this and Winfield, you can taste the difference in structure already. It's got a little more redder fruit. It has described in there is mountain sage. It's got a little bit more of an herbal note. It's the last Cabernet that we pick, but it's a lot more of a redder wine. And since 100% Cabernet, it doesn't really have the Malbec that we have up here that can potentially soften the palate a little bit more. But it does have that length and a lot more power that you can get from that 100% Cabernet from their block. Thomas Altimus makes a red cap vineyard, and he gets the fruit from the back side of his house. We get the fruit in the front of the house. And it's been a really good partnership with them.
Like, you get some sun exposure, there's dappled light, you're never really getting baked in there, so it allows for a longer growing season. With the tree line surrounding the entire property, it's a little bit more shaded, protection from that perspective. And because this property has these rolling sort of, kind of hillside action going on it in a very small area, so you get these little pockets of sort of cooler, warmer. So on the ridges sort of this bowl, you get a little bit more exposure, and so that section might come in earlier. The edges might come in a little bit later because they're a little bit more protected.
Yes.
Can I ask a question? So coming in as a newcomer, something I've noticed about your wines, I've been dying to ask you all. Howell Mountain, typically when you taste a Howell Mountain cab, massive tannins. And I've noticed even in your 13s from here, you all always have these very finely polished tannins that are super balanced with the acidity of the fruit. Is that sort of what you're trying to do? You're trying to make a balanced wine, and you're trying to mitigate those tannins by gently pressing the fruit and not extracting the hard tannins. Is that what you're doing?
Yes.
Yes.
So pick time, letting the grapes become, letting those tannins really develop over time, soften up on the grape, on the vine. Gentle handling all the way through. You don't want to over extract it because Howell Mountain is so big and burly, and we want this to be enjoyable up front and also last, right? But not fermenting at a super high temperature, not extracting all of that stuff super early and being really in control of that ferment and that extraction, and then tasting it and making sure that when we're pressing it, it's also not being over extracted at that point.
Because even the cave from the same vintage is 10 times more tannic. So it's really beautiful, and it's something I've noticed across the board with all of our wines, and it just makes it so wonderful for us to sell them and drink
So gentle treatment, pump unders, the selection of barrels. We're definitely not making the biggest, most muscular and extracted Napa Cabernets. In general, the Cade, the Plump Jack, to use that set, those are going to be more volume, bigger, and that's okay. So there is one beautiful thing about Napa Cabernet is, while there are those that would like to put it all into one bucket and say Napa Cabernet is like this, there's all kinds of Napa Cabernets, right? It's really exciting to see how diverse a set of wines is being produced here, and obviously there's a massive range of labels, if nothing else. But inside that, the styles vary, and it's exciting to be in the place that we are with our winemaking.
And we're looking to add, we have 2 other vineyards that are potentially coming to the stable in 16, 1 in 16, and then potentially 2 in 17. So we're looking to try and get a total of 5. 6.
In
addition to our property.
In addition to our property.
All in Napa.
All in Napa, yes.
To be determined.
To be determined, yes.
To be determined.
So just to speak to that briefly, in this current vintage, I should back up. In 2015, we did a tiny little bit with the Coombsville Vineyard, Simpkins family, actually childhood friend of Monique's, and on North Avenue, if you guys are familiar with that pocket of Coombsville, not too far from First, between I think First and Second off North. But in 2016 we did a little bit more. It looks like we'll actually be bottling then from the 16 a Simpkins Coombsville, Davies Cap, and then the plan would be to do that again here in 17. So that seems like it's a pretty good fit. Meanwhile, this year we're also doing, for the first year ever, a little bit from an Oakville vineyard that is south of Skellinger Lane, close to the trail. Oscar Renteria farms it, leases the property and farms it. So we're excited to give that a shot, and so that will be another Cabernet that we'll be working on for the first time in 2017. And then, obviously we need to keep our eyes open as we look to gradually grow the program. Very exciting to show this beautiful 14 J. Davies, and I'll let Sean and Jessica give us a little bit of a sense for how this particular vintage may be a little bit different from some of the others that have preceded it.
So the preceding one, 13 you've had, it's got more, the structure is more pronounced in that. This, we still have that supportive structure. We've got a little bit more plushness. The Malbec is getting a little bit larger. It's playing a larger role in 14. Malbec is what helps us tame down some of the tannins we have up here. We do 36 picks out of our 40 acres. So we start with the Malbec over in McEachran, and we'll usually end in the 97 block, which is right next to the Picnic Grove. And it will be, if we could stretch the one out there a little bit longer, we probably would. But it ranges over 6 weeks that we are picking just off this property.
So jumping back one vintage, this is the 13 Jamie. And so we're tasting one wine from 13. We tasted 3 from 14. With the Jamie, this is a style that will purposely age a little longer prior to release. So roughly 4 years of age at the time of release, more like 30 months in barrel as opposed to about 24 with the other Cabernets that we're producing. So we're giving a little more time in barrel, creating a slightly more dense style, but you'll find in the aroma straight out of the gate, that this really somewhat extraordinary fruitful aromatic. And so the idea is to skim out. Each year gives us a new opportunity. If we make 200 barrels of wine and we can skim out the top 12, that's kind of what we're doing here. With this one, there's a touch of Malbec and Petit Verdot in the blend, and I'll let Sean and Jessica give us a sense for why we do that. But before we go there, just to reiterate, First vintage of this wine was 2012. First vintage of J Davies rather, again, was the 2001. As we got better and better with this, I think from the outset we envisioned that one day there might be that special select, limited reserve, top tier Cabernet from the home property. When you're making 500 cases only, it doesn't leave a whole lot of room to also do, a tiny bit that you think is even better. Maybe it's one barrel. But as we progressed, by the time we got to 2012, 12 vintages into actually producing the wine from the property, we encountered a vintage where we not only had the extraordinary quality, but we also had an abundant a number of barrels to kind of work with. And so it was the perfect vintage really to start with the Jamie. We're excited to be able to present here the second vintage of the Jamie from the 14. And unlike the last one, excuse me, 13, unlike the last one, the 12, this one does have a touch of Malbec and I guess even a 2% of PV. So what do those two things do, Sean? Not only in this wine, but just to reiterate, what do those two things do, the Malbec and then the PV, as we incorporate them into our Cabernet wines?
So the Malbec, as you taste this wine, has quite a bit of structure, right? It's got a lot of power going on with this particular wine. The Malbec, what that is, because it's we source the Malbec that has the most concentration on this property, along with the Cabernet. The Cabernet clusters are about this big. It comes out of the 2008 block. And the Malbec also came out of the 2008 block, which also had very small clusters. We're looking for is it helps create and sort of softens the mid palate and makes a little bit of broadness in there to create, and then a little bit of lift, a little bit of blueberry notes that you get in there. The Petit Verdot adds some complexity in the background and a little bit more structure, but really it's just to create a little bit more complexity and mystery in your glass.
So if you think of it like music, right? The Cabernet is the melody, Petit Verdot is sort of like the bass notes, and then the Malbec sort of adds volume and layers to it, and helps express itself a little bit more. So it lets you see some of the things in the Cabernet that if it's 100% Cabernet, you don't always see. In the 2012, the Cab was beautiful by itself, but with this 2013, adding those little, very small amount of Malbec and Petit Verdot really just helps it sing a little bit better.